But I would find that even though I came to that conclusion with my conscious mind, I would still hang around people who, took advantage of me, or who didn't really care about me, or, things of that nature. Hey girl, hey, and welcome to the Self-Love Fix podcast, where we get relatable, we share tea, and we support each other on this journey of self-love, self-worth, personal development, self-esteem, and self-care. Because why wait until it's too late to start becoming the best version of ourselves? Let's start today. And I'm your host, Beatrice. So let's get into it. Welcome back again to the Self-Love Fix. And if you're new, my name is Beatrice once again. So let's jump into the topic. The topic this week is you hate to see it, cognitive dissonance and being humbled on this journey. That describes having inconsistent beliefs or attitudes in relation to how you actually act. So that definition might not make sense. It didn't make sense to me originally, but I'll give you an example. So cognitive dissonance is like when someone tells you, you have to be really good with your personal finances. You have to make sure you have a savings account set up. You have to make sure you have a 401k set up and all these kind of things. Like they'll tell you that, and they'll tell you that that's what they do themselves. And they really believe in, handling your personal finances that way. But when it comes down to it, they don't actually do it themselves. So it's like they tell you that they believe something, but they don't actually do it. And you might be sitting there like, oh, she is exposing me right now. She's reading me. Because this happens to all of us in every aspect of our lives, especially with, I think the most common one is healthy eating, right? In air quotes, this concept of healthy eating, I have to eat healthy. I got to make sure I'm going to get my green juices in. I only eat fruits and vegetables and all this kind of stuff. And then it's when it comes down to it, are you really doing that? Are you really doing that? But I think what I want to get into is more of the insidious kind of cognitive dissonance, the one that you don't even notice it happening. Because most of us engage, I don't want to say engage, but most of us are cognitively dissonant, with things that are more obvious, like the ones I mentioned before. But when it comes to more, or I should say less obvious things, a lot of us are actually cognitively dissonant. Have cognitive dissonance. A lot of us have some cognitive dissonance going on when it comes to the way we view ourselves or think about ourselves or love ourselves. It's a huge, huge thing. And actually, this is one of the main reasons why it is so hard for a lot of us to change attitudes about ourselves, beliefs about ourselves, and why so many of us might read, these self-help books or engage in, different material regarding self-love or self-esteem and find that we're still stuck in the same patterns. And we're like, what the heck? I know in my mind what I need to be doing, or I know from what I read how I view myself and how I need to be viewing myself, but why am I not doing it yet? And that's where it enters, or that's where we get cognitive dissonance. That's really what it comes down to, is having in your mind, it's like you have a view about yourself, but when it comes to actually carrying it out, more of the subconscious thing, carrying it out without having to think about it, it doesn't translate. And you know why? It's because it hasn't yet hit that subconscious level. That's why you have that cognitive dissonance going. So firstly, before I get more into examples of this, I want to encourage you to not beat yourself up. Do not beat yourself up, and don't look at it oh, so that's why I'm not further ahead in this journey. It's because I have to fix this subconscious. Okay, I gotta get to work. Okay. I have to really, really work at this. One thing that I want you to know is that this is not an overnight fix. This is not an overnight thing. Again, that's why I emphasize that this whole thing of learning to love yourself is a journey, because it takes time. It really does take time. There's this really, really, really good quote by Eliza Bokine. I hope I'm saying her name right. She's a therapist based out of Houston, and she says, you can't outthink trauma. And I'm going to, for the sake of this podcast, put in brackets, you can't outthink trauma and the subconscious mind. You just can't do it. You can't will yourself, or I shouldn't say you can't will yourself, but you can't think yourself into viewing yourself differently. You have to first go deeper and understand what exactly is, my core belief about myself, or my false core belief about myself that makes me have this issue with cognitive dissonance. That's really the starting point. But before we get there, because that's jumping ahead a little bit. So one form of cognitive dissonance that's super, super common on the self-love journey, and that I myself experienced for quite a while, is I had finally come to a point where I'm like, okay, I deserve for good things to happen in my life, or I deserve, to not have or associate with people in my life that didn't really care about me. But I would find that even though I came to that conclusion with my conscious mind, I would still hang around people who, took advantage of me or who didn't really care about me or things of that nature. I would just still stick around them. And I would just, for the life of me, I could not leave the situation. And whether it's friends or a romantic situation, I just could not leave the situation, even though in my conscious mind, I was certain that I knew that I deserved better. I couldn't leave. I just couldn't leave. And maybe you can relate to that, just kind of knowing with your mind, wait, I know I deserve better, still sticking around, right? Or maybe you spend a lot of time looking up all about body positivity and you're just thinking to yourself, okay, I know that my body is fine just the way it is. And I know that I don't have to have flat abs or even be small framed or anything like that to have a beautiful body. I know my body's beautiful just on its own. But then you may find that you still are kind of nitpicking at the way your body looks in the mirror and still kind of wondering what you can do to change it. Even though in your head you're like, okay, but I think I'm beautiful just the way I am. But you find yourself still trying to change the way you look or still not happy with the way you look. And you're like, why is there this dichotomy? Why is there two different things going on in my mind? It doesn't make any sense. Or maybe you're really, really just at the basic, beginning stage of this journey. And you're like, I know I should love myself and I know I need to love myself and I know that I am worthy of loving myself. But for the life of me, I can't figure out how to do it. I don't know why, but I just can't even get to that. You know what I mean? This is really what happens on the self-love journey is we hear the information from the outside, we're digesting the information from the outside, but it's not hitting the core. It's just not hitting the center. And I don't think enough people talk about this, especially with people who create books or even other material for learning about how to love yourself. And by the way, don't get me wrong. Consuming this material is good. The first step is getting yourself around people or material or content that is encouraging to your journey, that will uplift you and help guide you. Because the fact of the matter is, when you're on this self-love journey, where you might be on the journey, but you probably don't even know how to start thinking of yourself in a way that's more loving, in a way that's more nurturing, in a way that's more caring. It's very likely that you're trying to learn how to do that. So for that reason, yes, it's very, very, very important to consume that information however way you get it. Because I always say that awareness is the first step. So it's really good to have even affirmations and books and all those kind of things to help you kickstart your journey, to help keep you on the journey to get to your goal. Absolutely. I just want to make that clear. But what I'm trying to say and what I'm trying to make more clear is that we can't just consume the material and think that understanding it on a conscious level is going to dip down into the subconscious, into the subconscious level. We can't think that it's going to work that way. It's kind of let me give you a good example. Being in college. Oh, girl, I don't know if you remember organic chemistry or calculus or any of that. I feel like it was a while ago, but I know for a fact with organic chemistry and calculus, it was one of those things you think you got it. You really do. You think you got it after you go to class and you're in that lecture with your professor. You're like, oh, I got this, but then you go home and you're like, huh? And you're like, wait. Why am I not understanding this? I definitely got it in the class. And one big reason why is because of lack of repetition. You're not consuming it over and over and over again to the point where it dips down into your subconscious, right? Because if you practice that calculus and that, organic chemistry enough times every day, it's going to dip down to another part of your brain that your brain's going to be like, I got this. You're going to see something and you're going to know how to tackle it, right? Because, in college exams, it doesn't look like the homework at all. It requires much more critical thinking. And you know why? Because that professor assumes that you've done the work to try and figure out the basic material such that now you're prepared to conquer the critical thinking material. It's the same way that it works with the self-love journey. It's that you consume this basic material, like I said, whether it's consuming content, media, or even just hyping up yourself, journaling. It doesn't have to be, something you get from somebody else. It's just you're surrounding yourself with that good material, that learning material. You're consuming it over and over and over again, right? To the point where it's going to dip into your subconscious. And then now that it's dipped into your subconscious, you're able to apply that information when different situations pop up. And let me give an example of this. It's like if you starting off by saying, okay, I deserve better in my romantic relationships. I just do. I don't deserve what's going on in my current romantic relationship. I just deserve better. And then you decide that you're going to go ahead and start journaling, start consuming content and media that is also in alignment with that same belief of I deserve better. I deserve better in my romantic relationship. And you are making it a habit to make time for making that new belief that you've declared for yourself a core belief through journaling and self-reflections, doing this over and over and over again daily. It's only a matter of time before it starts to really dip into your subconscious and you start to think this way on your own without having to consciously think that way, right? Now, that's how it looks like overall, like an overview of the picture. There are also other steps that contribute to strengthening this process, such as going to therapy. Some people also might choose some other holistic or alternative forms of healing, such as Reiki healing or chakra healing, things like that. And of course, there's also the biggie of removing the false core belief that you've had previously in order to input the new belief into your subconscious mind. Because the way the subconscious mind works is that in order to have a new belief inputted into it, it has to remove the old belief, which is another reason why cognitive dissonance is so insidious and sneaky, is because we are trying to input this new belief, forgetting that we still have that old underlying belief. For example, it's important to you to become more proactive about finishing deadlines at work before the deadlines hit so that you're not as stressed. You will probably tell yourself, okay, I am going to start finishing my work or finishing my tasks or my projects before that deadline. I'm going to do it. I'm going to start doing it. But if you have a false core belief that you're a procrastinator and that you can't ever finish things early, well, no matter how many times you tell yourself, I'm going to do this, I'm going to finish early, you're probably going to end up procrastinating again and again and again. That's really how cognitive dissonance works. It's really insidious. So again, I just want to emphasize and kind of recap everything once more. In order to combat cognitive dissonance, we have to declare for ourselves a new belief. We need to find material that is in alignment with that belief, or even just surround yourself with positive words from your own self and journal them, or, read books, or it's up to you how you want to access that information that will help affirm that new belief that you've decided for yourself. And then lastly, it's going to be repetition, consistency, and consistency. It's going to be absorbing all of that information daily at a conscious level so that it can eventually seep deep down into the subconscious level, so that eventually you're going to operate with that belief system on your own without having to be consciously aware of it. And again, like I said, to strengthen this process and to help it be sustainable in your life and on your self-love journey, also definitely want to consider things like therapy and Reiki healing, chakra healing, and of course, uprooting that false self-core belief that you have underneath it all. Working through cognitive dissonance can be very difficult, but not impossible. And I am going to make it my job is to teach you more and more about working through it and creating resources for working through cognitive dissonance, because this is actually one of the stumbling blocks on this journey, one of the biggest stumbling blocks. So yes, thank you for sticking around for the rest of this episode and for tuning in for this episode, and have a great rest of your week.